As sudden as Drake had been beset by the fiery presence, the searing pain in his mind departed, leaving a dreadful stillness where the entity lingered, but remained silent. Recoiling from the pain and its abrupt departure, Drake surveyed the increasingly ominous world, eyes wide and dilated. The scarlet veins pulsing had become more intense and rapid. Even still, the world remained in suspended animation, as if the spectral form were assessing the young thief's presence. Suddenly the world came alive. Drake's heart raced as the ground rumbled and shook. Stalactites crashed to the ground and stones tumbled from their mighty perches with piercing shrill shatters. The voices booming, strange language once again rolled, filling the abyss, and within Drake's mind resounded its interpretation in the common tongue. This time, however, there was no burning pain accompanying the stranger, only a great heaviness that beset his body when the mysterious words were uttered. "What misfortune has brought one so small to my desolation?" groaned the voice. Drake's mind was slow to process what was happening, so it startled him when he heard his voice ringing out across the chasm to the yet unseen observer. He quickly and precisely detailed his journey from Hydria to Mailer and the events that had unfolded. Though it was his voice that spoke, it was not his will, nor were the words those he would have chosen. Every word he spoke was the truth in accordance with how Drake had witnessed them, and any attempt to shadow the truth bore no effect. When at last his tale ran its course, there was a dreadful silence. The scarlet veins now shone brightly, illuminating the cavern. Drake's eyes frantically darted around about him, to every facet of the rocky, jagged terrain. But the scarlet veins cast many shadows that could conceal his quarry. Gingerly Drake rose to his feet, though it was with considerable effort, as his limbs were weighty and his injuries and hunger further crippled him. He desperately wanted to flee, in a bout of madness, back through the chasm and away from this dreadful presence, but he doubted he could escape in his present condition even if he knew where to flee. The voice rumbled once more, and so Drake's mind was overthrown as the voice's onslaught seized his consciousness. "In this wicked place, all life will wilt. Your flame is already faint, child. You will surely perish if you continue on your present path. Listen to the words of my voice. Tarry with me a little. What power I possess, that this place is not rotted away, I will use to restore fervor to your limbs and strength to your failing heart, though I shall not govern your fate should you decline my offer." Though the words were kind in nature, the voice was full of authority, and Drake knew that his life was forfeit to the strange being's fancies so long as he remained in its presence. Panic swelled within his chest as fear refused to loose its hold on his heart, even as madness set its long fingers within the innermost depths of his consciousness. Indeed, his mind was in such turmoil, he scarcely considered the words uttered. Their presence was fouler than language could describe, and they bore a power that far surpassed any he had ever known. It felt as if each thought he conjured was a bolt of fire racing through his mind, and as though the specter was flame personified. Again the foul creature's touch departed from him. Slowly his senses returned as the voice left his mind in an eerie tranquility. Gathering his wits about him, this time Drake was determined to escape. Even as he sought to gather his feet under him, his body reverberated from the lingering presence of the menacing spirit. As fearful of the phantom as he was, he knew he could not long survive its intrusion into his mind. His chances were poor, but remaining here at this fell creature's whims was unimaginable. As he readied himself for flight, he found that his strength had been robbed of him. The travails of the journey had taken their toll, and the weight of the very air stripped any burst he had hoped to conjure. The boy slumped to the ground, bowing his head. He knew in that moment that there was no escape for him. Try as he might, the air refused him any vigor. He was left to meet his fate at the hands of the spirit of the Barren Summit. Tentatively, the young thief rose to his full height, his limbs quaking from fear and exertion. Dryly, he issued his retort, addressing the phantom, without being compelled for the first time. "How can you help me, and what do you desire in return?" "As for your second question," the voice rumbled, "I will ask nothing from you that you cannot decline. As for your first, it is considerably easier to show you than explain. Come to me." Abruptly, Drake's body, compelled by unseen forces, marched forward, deeper into the scarlet chasm. Frantically, the boy struggled to regain control of his body, but it was totally unresponsive. The voice rang through his head once more, in a derisive tone. "A word of counsel. In future dealings, do not so easily part with your name, child." The stone of the chasm was black and brittle, ready to fall into ash. All about him great boulders had been flung and lay in ruin. Led over crest, under furrow, and past rift, Drake was taken to the nexus of the scarlet veins. Here 2 massive pillars of stone rested against one another, forming a towering archway. However, what caught and held Drake's gaze, as though bewitched, were 2 twin molten horns that curved their way into a pair of blazing scarlet eyes, which were set in the face of a mighty serpent. Between each red scale glowed a scarlet light, similar to that of the chasm ore. The serpent's long, arched neck flowed gracefully into a powerful chest that could wrench the full-grown timbers of the alpine forest up by their roots. The rest of the creature's frame was obscured by shadow. As he drew nearer and nearer to the frightful specter, Drake's struggle for control over his own body grew more and more frantic. Every fiber of his being revolted against the commands set upon him, but his body marched forward, unperturbed, till he stood not 30 hands from the monstrous creature. Its grizzled, ruinous majesty left the young thief at a loss for words. The creature's form bore the weight of countless ages. Scars left glowing gaps in its once impenetrable armor. Its towering crown was lined with innumerable fractures, as some great conflict had left the creature's horns battered and chipped. Its eyes were like great boundless black pools, holding within a circlet of crimson flame, instead of eyes of flesh and blood. The air around the dragon would have been unbearable, but now Drake was only vaguely aware of the loathsome nature. From the creature's titanic body radiated a heat like a furnace, yet Drake stood before it unharmed. Its towering arched neck bowed as the serpentine face examined the boy with clinical efficiency. Finally, the creature loosened its hold over Drake, and the boy's body was under his own power. However, as he met the hypnotic gaze of the dragon's twin flames set deep within the serpent's eyes, he found himself unable to move, as fear and dread robbed what little remaining strength he possessed. "Take heart, little one," the voice within his mind rumbled as the spoken word chased the very dust on the chasm floor from before the creature. "I bear you no ill will. Longer the days since last I have had a companion, and longer still since I have conversed with the Son of Man." Drake, eyes wide with horror, could only manage a hoarse whisper in retort. "What do you want from me?" "For the time being," Emrys resounded, "I would have you stand before me. In time, there may be a greater task in store. Keep counsel with me, and I will restore and govern your steps so that you may yet escape this dreadful prison. A fair exchange, but what say you?" Drake's mind was in a frenzy. The power the dragon had wielded over him simply by offering up his name had been immense. He did not know what this decision would bring. The entity was intelligent and seemed reasonable. If it had wanted to harm him, then it had had ample opportunity. The request appeared harmless enough. However, each moment Drake looked into the eyes of the immense creature, filled the young thief with the primal urge to escape, though he knew it would be futile. Drake could not even begin to fathom what his captor was, or what plans it had in store for him, but he did know that he lived at the serpent's pleasure. He dare not refuse any prelude to hospitality, no matter how strange the one offering may be. With a word, the pact was sealed, and so Drake's fate. No sooner had the deal been struck, Emrys began to quiz the boy on every topic under the sun. Most of the questions pertained to history, on which the dragon was frustrated by Drake's lack of knowledge. After Emrys had touched on the wider topic of the world, the dragon settled on more local topics, which Drake was relieved to discuss after having to speak on the lineage of lands he had never seen. Drake spoke for many hours on Arden, and in particular Hydria. He told of the adventures his merry band of urchins had found themselves in, of wealthy lords, and fine ladies from distant lands. Emrys' eyes burned with a new light, one that caused Drake to question his sanity, as he deemed it to be pleasant. No, a cheerful gleam. As Drake recounted the tales of his short but exciting life, he noticed that the many bumps and bruises he had earned no longer bothered him, and that his hunger, while still present, did not pain him. Indeed, all but the worst of his injuries were nothing more than dark stains against his pale skin. His head was unnaturally clear, and he found his thoughts came to him quickly and vividly. His worries and anxieties were distant to him, though he could not tell if that was an enchantment of Emrys' doing, or due to the constant stream of questions being hurled at him from the inquisitive serpent. Eventually, Drake's tales ran their course, and Emrys considered his next conversation piece. The dragon's eyes grew solemn, and his voice echoed deep within Drake's mind. "Many wonders have you shared with me, little one. I would be remiss not to return one treasure with another. Allow one of sage years to regale you with a tale as old as these mountains." The dragon paused, waited for Drake's response, and was answered with a guarded nod before he started up his tale. "From the void I and my 11 kin were summoned. In those days, we were mighty before all of creation, tasked with the guidance of those who would seek the mysteries of life and delve into the hidden recesses of the world. We were the custodians of each facet that governed the world of the living. Seeing life to be fleeting, and with our knowledge, we sought to gather together those things that we deemed precious. We disregarded our covenant, and those that we deemed lesser than ourselves. When man began to seek the sacred fire and corrupt themselves in order that they too might possess long life, we aided them. And again, when the corruption was purged, we encouraged them with forbidden knowledge once more. However, this time we were rebuked for our arrogance." Emrys' eyes grew distant, and his words were almost soft. He continued resolutely, "We were cast out into a foreign terra. Men call it Otherland, or Anwin, as its inhabitants refer to it. Having lost all that I possessed, throughout the ages I grew resentful, and, from across the void, I watched the world of man change without us, aimless and without knowledge. After many years, those who had once cast us out faded, and their light was snuffed out. I believed in my heart it was time to reclaim that which was long lost, though my kin counted it as folly. Through the void I traveled back to the world of men, only to have a familiar foe awaiting my return. The earth groaned from our might, but as the fight pressed, I found that there was no victory for me. I fled, I was pursued, and like a writhing worm, I was smote here in the very depths of the earth, fused to the very stone of this accursed mountain. Not allowed to live, not allowed to die." For a long time, neither spoke a word. Drake had little comprehension of the dragon's tale, and felt uneasy with his inability to relate to Emrys. The dragon was unsearchable, his eyes cold and distant, as though peering into a far-off land. Eventually the dragon's gaze fell once more on Drake, and he continued to question the boy. Imry's thirst for knowledge knew no bounds, and Drake was pressed for every drop of information that he had ever possessed. Even with Drake's newfound vigor, his eyes began to dim. He did not know when sleep overtook him, nor how long he was able to rest. The night, at least what he understood to be night, was filled with many strange dreams of places and things he had never seen. When at last he woke from his fitful slumber, Drake was greeted by Imry's ever-watchful eyes, blazing brilliantly against the scarlet veins crisscrossing the ashen stones of the chasm. The dragon did not acknowledge Drake, but the boy knew that nothing escaped the serpent. Slowly rising from the warm stony ground, he rested against a jagged boulder near the outstretched forearm of the creature. In the light of the scarlet veins, Drake could see the flat stone into which the dragon's body ran, framed by the two stone pillars. The boy marveled at the creature and its peculiar circumstance. Discreetly, Drake witnessed the scales give way into plates of rock, as flesh turned into unyielding stone. Absently, Drake wondered what foul enchantment had caused Imry to be trapped in such a horrifying state, and how long he had been imprisoned here. However, the dragon's plight called his own into remembrance. How long would the dragon seek to amuse himself with the boy? What would happen once it grew weary of him? Drake had answered the creature's queries till exhaustion had overtaken him. However, what would become of him should the creature's thirst for knowledge never be slated? He would be trapped in this void, answering Imry's questions till, at last, his body failed. There was a strange emptiness that had set upon him. The world felt stale and his movements were sluggish. His hunger was not aching, though he knew by this time it should be gnawing at his stomach. The boy's wondering eyes must have finally earned the dragon's attention, as the creature's voice rumbled deep within the pits of the boy's mind, telling him to voice what he wished. Drake, who had not been thinking any one thing in particular, wishing to appease the dragon, quickly retorted with the last thought that had been on his mind. "I suppose my mending is your doing? I thank you for that." The dragon continued to observe the boy, features never wavering. Eventually, after an unbearably long pause, Imry murmured, "It's a trifling feat, in accordance with our bargain. If not for this accursed place leeching my strength from me, you would think yourself immortal. As it stands, I can barely stave off your hunger." The dragon discontinued the conversation, and Drake was not bold enough to seek another avenue of dialogue. He did get the sense that Imry was in deep contemplation, which alarmed the boy, though any action the terrifying creature took would invoke fear within him. For the time being, neither spoke, and in spite of his apprehension, Drake began to note his surroundings. Columns of stone ran from the ceiling of the cavern to its floor, narrowing in the middle, and lined with a thick scarlet ore. Drake's eyes would chase the winding veins back to the fallen pillars, adorning the dragon, before discreetly turning away. He continued to play these childish games in a vain attempt to preoccupy himself and conceal his true intentions. With each journey to the dragon's wombs, his glances grew increasingly brazen. At last, the boy no longer masked his intent and gaped openly at the creature's plight. The boy was mesmerized by the morbid beauty of the mountain's strange thirst, when he was roused from his stupor by the dragon's groan. The dragon spoke once more within the boy's mind. "It is a sign of disrespect to lie, both to the offender and the offended. I will not be angered by one seeking knowledge, no matter how trifling, but you insist on dealing so mistrustful of me. Have I not treated you well?" "You have, my lord," Drake snapped, quickly bowing. I simply have never seen one so great as you, my lord." The dragon snorted a hot jet of air and turned away from the boy. Drake, fearing he had offended the dragon, began to speak, but was silenced. "In my desolation, I have ceased to be what I once was," the dragon's voice rumbled. "I am repentant of the course my life has run. Now, Providence has seen fit to offer me mercy. Though in me dwells the wisdom of ages, I cannot say to what end your tale will run. In the grand scheme of the world, your life is insignificant, and though you may believe it to be, fate has not been unkind to you. Tell me, little one, if deliverance descended from on high, where would you go? What course would you run? Emery's voice was still, but his words resounded in the boy's mind. Drake did not know to what end the dragon's inquiries led, but he knew for certain that Emery's words were not in vain. Still groggy from his sleep, or from this vile prison, he did not know, but his mind strained to gather words that would appease the dragon. He mulled over every word of their previous conversations in an attempt to gain insight into Emery's perspective, though the effort was in vain. Finally, the boy spoke up. I would seek justice for my slain kin. The scarlet lights flared at the boy's words, and all at once his mind was besieged. Lies are not suitable in the presence of the mighty, the dragon hissed in the boy's head, sending waves of dread over the young thief. I did not grant you your tongue liberty to commune only to be mocked. Speak truth and fear no evil. Drake's eyes were wide with terror, his mind frayed before the overwhelming presence of the powerful serpent. Though not compelled by Emrys to speak as before, the boy issued his retort in earnest. I know only Hydria and its streets. Even there I am pursued. I know nothing of the wider world, but in it I must find my way. Once more Emrys replied, this time without wrath. And what path is that? Are you content to survive as you did before, stealing pittance from drunken beggars, and longing for the day when a lordly master's grasp slipped on some inane trinket? Drake's words failed him. As he searched for his tongue, the dragon's fiery gaze pierced him, and once more Emrys' voice echoed in his mind. I told you of a greater task that I would have you perform, though I shall not dictate your destiny. Accept or decline freely as you will. Will you hear my petition? Drake did not have the courage to deny Emrys, and nodded his agreement. The dragon's voice thundered once more. When the warrior had finished his cursed work on me, he placed his blade at the entrance of this cavern, as a seal to prevent those baleful creatures of the mountains from delving into these depths and learning from my wisdom. My charge to you is to retrieve the blade and destroy me. In return, I will grant you the strength to walk any path.